Hello, I'm Arlene Herson, and tonight I invite you to meet a woman who might be called the first lady in radio and television. The first radio show she hosted was called Blind Date, and it was such a success on radio that it was transferred to television, which made her the first woman ever to host a game show on TV. She was also one of the first panelists on the incredibly popular What's My Line, which was on the air for 25 years. She is the first woman to have been elected to the United States Hall of Fame. As a matter of fact, everything she does is first rate, whether it's Broadway, movies, television, or hosting her own radio show, which she did for 24 years. My guest is Arlene Francis. We'll meet her right after these messages, so please stay right there. I'm Arlene Herson, and we're back. We're speaking with Arlene Francis, who I think is one of the most incredible women of all time. Welcome. Okay.
I'm incredible because I've survived all this time.
Okay, you know, you really have. In talking about the introduction, when I mentioned, you were first in lots of things. If I mentioned all the firsts, I think we would have done the whole half hour and all the things that Arlene Francis has done. But your first, when you started the Arlene Francis show, it actually started from Sardi's. We originally were going to tape the show from Sardi's and did not, but you're back at Sardi's now, where it really started. How does it feel to be back?
Well, I'll tell you, I was reluctant after I stopped work at WOR, which I did, as you mentioned, for 24 years. And my husband was ill, and I thought, well, that'll be it. And I just won't go back now to anything else. But finally, a doctor said to me, Arlene, you've worked since you were 18 years old. You really can't stop now. It'll just make you more depressed, because my husband had died in the meantime. And he was absolutely right. It was very hard in the beginning because, as you know, it's an audience program, and there are lots of people up there all the time watching us, and there are performers that sing songs, and Marvin Hamlisch plays the piano when he's around. And so there's very often an opportunity to hear a sentimental song or My Funny Valentine or something that meant something to me in the past, and I'd break into tears, and I'd go to the ladies' room and mop up and then come back and resume. And it was hard the first month, and then it got easier all the time, and the doctor was right. It's been a big help. Work is a terrific panacea.
I agree. As a matter of fact, in the research on you, even before this happened, years ago, before you knew that maybe there'd be a time that you would not work, and I'm sure that there will not be, but you said that work was your life, that you needed to work. And this goes back to Arlene Francis. When you were first starting, you realized how important work was to your life. But being in a place like Sardi's, when you mentioned, if the audience does not know, and they should because it's a wonderful show, you co-host
with Joan Hamburg.
Yes, yeah. with Joan every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday.
Coming live from Sardi's. Live. I mean, and all those people, the place was jammed. That's one of the reasons we couldn't tape there, because there are too many people. We couldn't get the camera crew in.
I know.
The place is packed. People come to see you, they come to see the guests, but is that a problem? Live show, all audience participation?
It's fun because you can stop and address an audience if you feel like it. You're not talking just into a microphone and just into a studio. Of course, you have the same kind of thing here. You've got people all around, and you're in your own comfort. But at Sardi's, the people, it's a little more like being in a theater, you know, because you work with them. If they respond nicely, then you can answer, or you can ask somebody something, or you can turn around and talk to somebody that's sitting at a table nearby that is just having I was going to say a Bloody Mary, but I won't say that.
Well, that's
a cup of tea.
That's okay. No,
and watching with fascination. You say you're having a good time, and they answer you. You know, it's friendly.
Okay. You're co-hosting. I mean, you were host of the Arlene Herson show. Arlene Francis show.
Not yet,
show.
I'm not.
You know, with the Arlenes, everybody here has been getting. I'm even getting confused here.
I
But no, you're co-hosting. It's really Joan Hamburg show, and on Wednesdays the two of you co-host. Is that
that's the way it
difficult
goes.
To kind of?
It was difficult for me in the beginning because I'd never co-hosted anything before. I mean, I had worked with another man, let's say, on different shows that I had done, but it was partly my show and partly his show. But when we work together this way, and it's all ad lib, you know, it just depends on how well we get along, and we do get along. But it was difficult for me at first because I'm not used to having to wait till somebody else asks a question, you know.
Absolutely. You want to, pop right in there when you want to pop in there. But you've done so much. I'm going to take you all the way back because I think
All
your
right.
life has been very, very, very remarkable. Because you have achieved so much in show business, yet your father was opposed to it. No way did he want you to go into show business. He even put you into a convent school, which was supervised by nuns. How in the world did you, from such a strict family, get into a business as crazy as show business?
Well, as you said, I went to a convent at Mount St. Vincent. I ran away once, but they caught me in the grotto, so it wasn't really a good runaway. And then finally, I went to Finch, finishing school. It's no longer in existence. And then my father gave me a gift shop called the Studio Darlene, anything to take me away from my thoughts about the theater and so forth. And my father would send me to Europe with my mother to buy things for the shop. It was a gift shop. And all my friends all the people that I knew that were in the theater or in radio, which was active at the time, would come in and make believe they were buying something if a customer should come in, you know. And finally, one man who had been in radio said that there was a part vacant in a radio show, that a lady was leaving it, and it was a character that had to play all different kinds of things, a cat and a dog and a bird and a princess and an old lady and a duck. And after all, on radio, they couldn't see you, so it was fine. And I auditioned for it, and I got the part. And my father, who wouldn't let me go into the theater, thought radio had to do with business. You know, they talked about Wheaties and automobiles and things like that, so that had to be perfectly respectable, had to do with trade. So that's how I got my first job in radio.
Okay, so you kind of snuck in the back door.
I snuck in the
because
back
your father
door,
said
right.
that was okay because they wouldn't see you. But at one point, when you said you had to be I hear that in one of your first radio shows you had to do 72 impersonations. Really? 72?
That was it. That was the one in which I had to do all those I had to be different things and different people,
Okay.
anything that had a feminine voice. And sometimes if the man was missing, I'd have to do a baritone.
Okay,
That was
unnatural
fun.
from the very beginning. Radio is really where it all started for you.
But you know, you learn an awful lot in radio, as you know, and on all the soap operas that I did in radio, Betty and Bob and John's other wife, or what they were all called, I can't remember. And there was one part that I played, was a Spanish girl, which I had studied very hard to get the dialect exactly right and the speech exactly right. And George Abbott, that wonderful 100-year-old man, was producing a play called All That Glitters that required the part of a Spanish girl for the lead. And I knew somebody that worked at Abbott's office, and he had been auditioning a great many Spanish girls, and he hadn't found anybody for it that was right for the theater. So this man said, I know a girl that's in radio, and she kind of looks Spanish, and she's got the accent, so would you like to talk to her? I used to go into that office, unbeknownst to my father, and sit there and wait to be called just to get in to see him, because he was a great man of the theater. As you know, George Abbott was,
Absolutely.
well, he was in it all of his life. And this time, all the people were sitting around waiting to get in to see Abbott, and I just walked in because I had an appointment. Oh, it was lovely.
And got the part.
And I got the part, yes.
Okay, which led to another aspect. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and talk some more with Arlene Francis.
Okay.
We're speaking with Arlene Francis. We'll be right back after these messages. Please stay right there. I'm Arlene Herson, and my guest is Arlene Francis. We're here in New York City, and talking about your incredible career, but you have done so much. And we mentioned All That Glitters, which was really your first Broadway show. You've done numerous things on Broadway. Mm-hmm. You've been on radio, as we mentioned, and television. But the thing that really, I think, changed your life, and correct me, of course, if I'm wrong, but was really being on television, was What's My Line? That made you a star. There's no exposure like
Made
being on
everybody
television.
one, it's true.
Yeah, true.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, then everybody saw you in your house, in their house, once a week. I hear that you almost didn't do that. When Mark Goodson called you about it, you weren't very excited, didn't think it was such a great idea?
I wasn't the one that wasn't so excited. He wasn't so excited. He said, this is a little idea we have for a summer replacement. And he said, if you'd like to come up and do a little run-through with us, see if you like it and so forth. And he explained the show, which I'm sure your audience has seen or certainly heard about. And we thought And he thought that it'd be very good if we could get a 13-week replacement for it. That was the only thing. We had kind of fun, but we never thought it was a big idea. We just thought, guessing what somebody does, is that going to really interest anybody? And so we were on for 13 weeks that stretched into 25 years, 17 years on Sunday night, and the rest of the time in syndication.
Incredible. What made it so successful?
I think that the first thing that people say is, how do you do? And the next thing they say is, what do you do? And I think that trying to guess people's profession would be something the audience can do along with you. And also, we were a different kind of a panel. Dorothy played the game like a, she was like a dog with a bone. She just loved playing it, and she was wonderful at it.
Dorothy Kilgallen.
Dorothy Kilgallen, the late. And Fred, the famous comedian. Fred, how about that?
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Anyway, and Bennett Cerf loved to make puns, and he knew everybody, so he was very good. And as the audience knows, he was the publisher of Random House, and a very successful one for many, many years. And John Daly was the master of ceremonies, and he was very learned. And then there was Arlene Francis. And we just had great fun trying to figure out what people did, and the audience tried with us, because they didn't know either what the person did. They just hold up a screen in front of their eyes, in front of the camera,
Actually, it was really a lot of fun, and they had mystery guests, but I just have to, at one point, I understand your son Peter was a mystery guest once, and you did not guess him.
It was so embarrassing. He had gone out of the hotel where we lived with a bag over his back. He was at that time working at the World's Fair, where a lot of kids were working, And he said he was taking his costume out, his clothes out to the cleaners. And I said, well, I will go into the theater, so I'll see you afterwards. That's what happened. And then he was the mystery guest, all dressed up in a blue suit. Oh, it was such a pleasure to see him when I took that blindfold off, except that none of us got him.
Wow,
it was just
that's incredible.
unbelievable.
Well, I could understand why the other panel didn't get him, but you, on the other hand, some of the other mystery guests just included Judy Garland, Frank Sinatra, and Ronald Reagan. Obviously, before he was president of the United States.
I want to tell you something. I lecture every once in a while, and I have outtakes from What's My Line. And one of them is Ronald Reagan signing in. And the audience starts to scream. They giggle and carry on. And the reason is that, of course, in those days, his suits weren't as well tailored as they are today. And he's got these great big shoulder pads and, the wrinkles down the back, and they giggle and carry on. And all the questions he answers, he says, yep, nope, yep.
Well, Ronald Reagan says a lot more now, the great communicator. But do you know, you hosted another show, The Home Show, which you did for many years, which actually brought people into their homes, into the guest home.
Yes.
Now, you were also, speaking about presidents, you interviewed during that time John Kennedy and Jimmy Carter.
I did.
Before they were president. Do you get the feeling, do they have a special quality, people that have presidential potential?
I don't think that the presidency attracts the most and the best that we have, because it's a terribly hard job, and because there is so much political infighting now. Maybe there wasn't in the days of, there was with Abraham Lincoln and Douglas, but somehow it's too hard a job to fight the political scene. And I think that in the days early on, I don't know how many people that are watching this ever saw Adlai Stevenson, but I thought he was one of the best examples of a man to be president of these United States. And he failed.
Okay, did you interview him?
I did.
You did? Okay.
One of my happiest moments.
Yeah, he was, absolutely. And lots of people have said what you said, but he never did get there. Jimmy Carter did, John Kennedy did, but the question was, did you see a special quality in them when you were interviewing them, or did you?
Yes, I did. Carter was different. Carter is more he's just a very decent, nice man that believes in the right things and good things, and I think, but you've got to be more than that to be President of the United States.
Yeah.
You have to have a bigger brain than that, and you have to know how to operate it. And I just, I admired Kennedy, I must admit. I did. Mostly, I suppose, I thought he was young and making it, and I think he attracted people a great deal.
Wow. And they both met.
Nothing attracted me like Roosevelt. I remember when he died, I walked up and down the street crying. And in windows, you know, they'd have a hat of his or something on Fifth Avenue that he may have bought in one of those stores, and I just look at it and burst into tears. It's funny, I was a kid then. I mean, reasonably young, not that young.
That's, well, is there, you know, you've interviewed so many people. When you mentioned potential presidents of the United States, your career has been incredible. But there was one time, and I think you can kind of spot what's right for you and what isn't right for you. There was one time you were offered a job. You got a phone call, new show starting up, happened to have been called The Today Show. You turned it down, co-hosting with Hugh Downs. I wonder where Barbara Walters would be today if you had taken that job.
She'd have been somewhere. Don't worry about that girl. She knows how to run a parade.
Yes,
She's very good.
I agree.
No, but what had happened was that I had been doing a program called Home for 4 years on NBC, which was the first magazine of the year, and I think I'm not being immodest about it because everybody else was associated with it. Felt the same way. It really was a true magazine. You know, it was really divided into segments. It really did do all the different sections that are in women's magazines. Not necessarily women's, Good Housekeeping and so forth, but, and I enjoyed that very much. And when Garraway, was it Garraway that left Today then?
I think so.
David Tibbett came to my house and said, Arlene, how would you like to do the Today Show? And I said, you mean replace Mr. Garraway? And he said, yeah, I said, well, I don't know how I'd feel about that, but I'm not sure that I want to be in a show where I have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I haven't been married that long that I want to get away from my husband for breakfast, and my child is very young, and I think that I ought to devote more time to my family and not have those very difficult hours. And so I didn't do the Today Show.
Wow.
And I have never regretted it except one time, and that's when Barbara went to China. I was so jealous. I wanted to go to China. Now I can go, of course.
Now you can go. Now you can go. And you've done a lot of things. We're going to take a break and talk about what you did instead of the Today Show. We're speaking with Arlene Francis. We'll be right back after these messages. I'm Arlene Herson, talking to Arlene Francis here in New York City on a beautiful day, but lovely to be here talking to you.
Thank you.
We were talking about, you have done so much in your career, it's really kind of hard to condense it all into a half an hour. But you did have a radio show, the Arlene Francis Show, for 24 years. I think you probably thought that show would go on forever.
I did.
It didn't. Okay, you were fired. You were just, the show was canceled. Were you shocked? Did you have any warning?
I had no warning whatsoever. We were very high rating. We'd always been reasonably successful. And they just said that they would make some kind of a deal about the rest of my contract for that year, and that was it. And I went to them, and I called Mr. O'Neill, who was then the head of, I thought he was the head of WOR. He'd left WOR to go out west to take care of something else. And I said, just explain to me why. I mean, we're number one. We don't have any competition. Why? And he said, Arlene, you have to talk to somebody else. So I said, well, this isn't going to be worth it because they're not going to be able to tell me. If they had come to me, you see, I'd been there 24 years, and I started at a low salary, and naturally it was increased every year, and it did get to be a very big salary. If they had just come to me and said, Arlene, would you take less? I would have said, of course I'd take less. I mean, it wasn't that vital to me. I just naturally expected it every year. That's the way it happens with contracts and with salaries. But they didn't do that, which I thought was bad form.
Yeah. Terrible. And you had been, Mike Wallace, by the way, called you the best interviewer in the world.
That's before he met you.
We haven't met yet, but he did. You know, it's kind of, because you've interviewed everybody. I mean, it was a real shock, and I know how hurt that you must have been. But you had a party. You had a big party afterwards, because you had said, I had read a quote from you that says, you know, rules of behavior for people in public life. Don't antagonize. Don't make waves. If you win, act as though you're used to it, and if you lose, act as though you like it. Now, was that party kind of in that philosophy, act as though you like it?
It was the best party. I'm sorry you weren't there.
Me
If I'd
too.
known you then, I certainly would have seen to it. Yes, Jean Bach, who was the producer of my show, called. It was once again a surprise to me, because she called just about everybody there was in the theater and radio and television, people that were in town from California, and it was just a big picnic. It was really a wonderful party.
Well, Walter Cronkite was there, Buddy Hackett was
Oh,
there,
yes.
Gene Cronin was there, the cast of, or the crew from Entertainment Tonight was there.
Yeah.
Because everybody felt, I mean, there's one thing about Arlene Francis, I mean, a lot of things, but one thing that everybody says, I haven't heard anybody say anything that's not nice about you.
And I'm not going to introduce
How-
you to them.
You even had a call show at one time, and I understand that a call-in show on WOR, and you're so nice, you were just too rude to cut people off. that was kind of tough to work. The time is going so fast. You were married for 40 years to,
I was indeed.
you mentioned at the beginning, to
Martin
Martin
Gable.
Gable. He was a great influence on your
Yes, he
life. You
was.
did so much together.
He was an exceptional and a brilliant man. And to go through the library of his books the other day was just, I just couldn't believe that he had read everything that he'd read, because they were marked and they were a little torn here and there. And he was a tremendous influence on me, and a good one, I hope, and very
Yeah.
much missed.
Yes, the diamond heart that you're wearing, that's almost legendary. I see you're still wearing it.
Yes, people come up and they say, "Are you Arlene Francis?" And I say, "Yes." And then they say, "Well, we thought so, because you still wear that diamond heart." There's diamonds on both sides. In case I get run over, they'll know who it is.
Well, that was a special gift from your
Yes,
husband? On a
my
spec-
first anniversary.
Ah.
And I've never taken it off.
Yeah, I've never seen you anyplace. Well, obviously, you have had such a special life. You've interviewed so many people.
I've been lucky.
You've been lucky. Anybody you haven't, that you'd like to interview today that you haven't? I know that's a tough question.
Well, a long time ago, I wanted to interview Sadat. I would have loved to have done that. I don't know any people that are of accomplishment I would like to interview. And some people that have tried to be of accomplishment and haven't been able to make it but have an interesting story, I'd be grateful for that too. Don't you find it the same?
Oh, absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. Well, you know, as you, and I've learned a lot from reading about you, from learning about you, but I think that everybody has an interesting story to tell.
That's right, somewhere.
And your secret to being a good interviewer is what?
Never ask, do you think this is the right way for a person to behave? Then they have to give you a yes or no answer. Always say what, or how, or why, or will you tell us the story? Don't you find?
Absolutely, and
I don't have to tell you that trick. You know it already.
Absolutely, yes or no answers are very hard. Well, you know, you certainly have told us, you know, some of your story anyway, and I thank you very much for taking the time
It's
and for
lovely
sharing
to talk
with us.
to you, Arlene.
Thank you. I hope that you have enjoyed meeting Arlene Francis. I know that I certainly have, and I hope you'll join us again next week. Meantime, good night. Hope to see you then.